Stop. Before you scroll past this, I need you to hear something that will save you hundreds of dollars and years of frustration. Most people are planting the wrong things. Not a little wrong. Completely, fundamentally wrong for the kind of gardener they actually are. And the nurseries? They are not going to tell you that. They will happily sell you a cart full of plants that are going to look incredible for 3 weeks and then silently die while you blame yourself. Here is the truth. The reason your garden has failed every single time is not you. It is the plants. You were given high-maintenance plants and told to be a low-maintenance person, and that equation never works. I have spent years testing, killing, learning, and obsessing over one specific question. Which plants will survive a real person with a real life? Not a retired horticulturalist with 6 hours a day. A real person who forgets, gets busy, goes on holiday, and still wants to walk outside to something beautiful. Today I am handing you that list. 15 perennials that come back every single year, handle neglect like professionals, and deliver beauty that makes your neighbors stop and stare. And if you are not subscribed yet, hit that button right now because this is exactly what I do here every week, and you're going to want every single one of these videos. Stay for plant number 10. It is the one nobody talks about, and it is secretly the most spectacular thing you can put in a garden. Let's go. Plant 1, hosta. Let's start with the shadiest problem in your garden. That dark corner under the tree where nothing seems to want to grow, where you have tried and failed more times than you care to admit. Hostas were born for that exact spot. These are grown almost entirely for their foliage, and what foliage it is. Enormous, architectural leaves in shades of deep forest green, silvery blue, buttery gold, and striking two-tone combinations of cream and green that look almost painted. Some varieties stay small and tidy, fitting perfectly in containers or tight spaces. Others expand into sweeping 4-foot mounds that anchor an entire garden bed and stop people in their tracks. What makes them exceptional for the gardener who does not want to fuss? They genuinely prefer low light. They become dramatically more impressive every year as the clumps mature and expand. They are surprisingly unbothered by dry spells once they settle in, and they ask almost nothing of you once they are planted. No deadheading, no staking, no drama. Hostas are hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9. That covers nearly the entire country. Specific varieties handle temperature extremes differently. So if you are in the far north or the deep south, just confirm the variety before you buy. Plant 2, Black-Eyed Susan. If hostas are for the shady corners, Black-Eyed Susans are for the spots that bake in full sun all day where other plants give up and shrivel. These are the golden yellow, dark-centered wildflowers you have seen growing along roadsides and in open meadows, and that tells you everything you need to know about their toughness. They are native to North America. They evolved here without anyone watering them, fertilizing them, or worrying about them. That evolutionary toughness is what you get in your garden. They handle drought without complaint. They self-seed, meaning they politely multiply and fill in surrounding space over time, giving you more plants for free. Pollinators flock to them in extraordinary numbers from midsummer all the way through autumn. You can deadhead the spent flowers to keep the blooms coming, or you can walk away and let them handle themselves entirely. Either approach works. The plant genuinely does not care which you choose. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. One of the most adaptable and forgiving perennials in existence. Plant 3, Echinacea coneflower. This one has been a garden favorite for decades, and it has absolutely earned that status. Echinacea, commonly called coneflower, produces tall daisy-like blooms with distinctive raised centers in purple, pink, white, yellow, and orange. They are bold, they are beautiful, and they are remarkably unfussy about where they live. Heat, fine. Drought, handled. Poor lean soil, actually preferred. They bloom for months through the peak of summer. They bring in butterflies and bees constantly. And when you leave the seed heads standing through autumn and into winter, birds feed on them through the coldest months. Your garden gets food and texture and movement through the season you would otherwise write off entirely. The choice is yours with coneflowers. Cut them back for more blooms, or leave them completely wild. Both approaches give you a garden that looks deliberate and alive. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. Handles cold winters and hot summers with equal ease. Plant 4, daylily. Few plants in the gardening world have the kind of legacy daylilies have built, and they have built it by consistently outperforming expectations year after year. There are more than 80,000 registered varieties of daylilies. Deep wine reds, warm peachy oranges, soft lemon yellows, pale lavender pinks, rich burgundies, extraordinary bicolors. Whatever your garden's palette, there is a daylily for it. They grow in sun or partial shade. They tolerate clay soil, sandy soil, slopes, flat beds, and containers. They form dense clumps that crowd out weeds naturally. They multiply slowly over time, and every few years you can divide those clumps and replant the divisions for free. Your one purchase becomes many plants. Your maintenance to-do list is essentially divide every 4 to 5 years when the clumps get crowded. That is the full extent of it. One important note. Daylilies are toxic to cats specifically. Dogs and most other animals are fine. But if outdoor cats use your garden, plant these with that awareness. Hardy in zones 3 through 9, with some newer cultivars reaching into zone 10. Plant 5, lavender. There is a version of lavender that thrives on neglect. That version is the one you want, and the good news is that it is exactly what you get when you plant lavender in the right conditions. Lavender wants lean, poor draining soil. It does not want heavy feeding. It absolutely does not want to sit in wet ground. The single most reliable way to kill lavender is to overwater it, which means if you tend to underwater and forget, you are actually closer to the ideal lavender owner than someone who fusses and waters on a schedule. The flowers are the iconic long purple spikes you already know. Fragrant, long-lasting, beautiful from late spring through summer. The plant itself acts as a natural insect repellent, making it a brilliant choice near a seating area or outdoor dining space. The dried flowers are useful in the kitchen, in sachets, in homemade teas. In mild climates, it stays evergreen through winter, giving your garden structure when everything else has gone dormant. The less attention you give lavender, the more gratitude it shows you. That is a plant relationship worth having. Best suited to zones 5 through 9 for common varieties. English lavender is the hardiest choice for zone 5 winters, provided drainage is excellent. In zone 4 or colder, grow it in a container you can bring inside when temperatures drop hard. 5 in, and I promised you something genuinely indestructible. The kind of plant where people say, I have seen this survive things that should have finished it off completely. Plant number 7 is that plant. Keep watching. Plant 6, astilbe. Here is the plant that solves the impossible shade problem and does it with extraordinary flair. If you have a north-facing bed, a space buried under the canopy of mature trees, or a corner that simply never gets real sun, most flowering plants are going to look sad and scraggly there. Astilbe looks magnificent. It produces feathery, plume-like flower spires in rich pinks, deep reds, crisp whites, soft purples, and warm lavenders that rise elegantly above its attractive ferny foliage. It looks, genuinely, like something from a high-end garden design. And depending on the varieties you choose, you can stagger bloom times from early summer through late summer, giving yourself months of color in the shade. Astilbe does want consistent moisture. It is one of the few plants on today's list that is not drought-tolerant, so give it regular water, especially in warmer regions. Beyond that, plant it, keep it reasonably moist, and watch it become more spectacular with every passing year. Hardy in zones 3 through 8. Thrives particularly well in the Pacific Northwest, Upper Midwest, and Northeast. In Zone 8, ensure it gets afternoon shade and consistent watering through the heat of summer. Plant 7, sedum, stonecrop. This is it. The one I said cannot be killed. And I mean that as literally as I can mean anything in gardening. Sedum stores water in its thick, fleshy leaves the way a camel stores water for the desert. It is a succulent. Rocky, shallow soil. It does not notice. Sandy, nutrient-poor ground. Perfectly content. Full blazing sun from morning to evening. Exactly what it wants. 3 weeks without rainfall. It barely registers. There are 2 main forms. Low-growing, creeping varieties that spread beautifully between stepping stones, across rocky banks, and over walls. And taller upright varieties, most famously autumn joy, that grow to around 2 feet and produce large flat-topped flower heads. Both are virtually indestructible. Autumn joy specifically gives you something almost theatrical across the seasons. Pale pink buds arrive in late summer. Those deepen to a full rich rose at peak bloom. Then they transition into warm copper bronze by autumn and hold their structure through the coldest months, giving your garden architectural interest long after everything else has gone bare. Every hot, dry, difficult, sun-blasted spot in your garden, this is the plant. Hardy in zones 3 through 9 for most varieties. Some low-growing types survive into zone 2. Heat, drought, and cold are all equally irrelevant to sedum. Plant 8, perennial salvia. This one requires a small but important distinction before we go further. There are annual salvias and perennial salvias, and today we want Salvia nemorosa specifically, the perennial kind. These form compact, well-behaved upright plants covered in rich spikes of violet blue, deep purple, or soft pink flowers. They bloom abundantly in late spring and early summer. If you cut them back after that first main flush, they very often come back for a second wave of bloom in late summer. 2 rounds of color for the effort of 1 light pruning. That is the kind of return on investment a low-effort gardener can get excited about. Butterflies, bees, and hummingbirds treat perennial salvia as a preferred destination. Deer and rabbits avoid it entirely because of the aromatic oils in the foliage. It handles heat. It handles drought. It does not want to be over-fertilized, and it does not want wet feet in poorly drained soil. Give it sun and drainage, and it will exceed your expectations for years. Hardy in zones 4 through 9. In zone 4, a layer of mulch over the roots in late autumn gives it some extra insurance through the harshest cold. Plant 9, Russian sage. Plant 9 is the one I genuinely wish someone had shown me years earlier. The one that makes garden visitors stop, point, and ask what on earth that ethereal, shimmering thing is. And the answer is always one of the most effortless plants in your entire garden. Russian sage, botanical name Perovskia, is not a true sage, and it is not from Russia. What it is jaw-dropping. From midsummer through autumn, it sends up tall, silver-white stems covered in tiny lavender-blue flowers that create a haze of color, a mist, a shimmer that catches the light and moves in the breeze in a way that is genuinely mesmerizing. It makes everything planted nearby look more beautiful by contrast. It provides 3 to 4 months of that effect. The maintenance requirements are almost laughable in their simplicity. Full sun, poor to average soil. It actually performs worse in rich soil, becoming floppy and less elegant. Excellent drainage. That is the list. Drought-tolerant once established, deer-resistant, wind-tolerant, heat-tolerant. It wants to grow a little rough and untamed, and in return it gives you the most asked-about plant on your street. Hardy in zones 4 through 9. Exceptional in hot, dry regions. In zone 4, cut it back to around 6 inches in late autumn, and it returns reliably each spring. Plant 10, catmint, nepeta, continuous color. Nearly the entire season. Minimal work. That sentence describes catmint, and it is not an exaggeration. Catmint forms relaxed, flowing mounds covered in clouds of small lavender-blue flowers. It blooms heavily in spring. If you cut it back by roughly a third after that first flush, it rebounds and blooms again in late summer. 2 seasons of color from one plant with 1 trim in between. It handles full sun and partial shade. It grows in lean soil. It is drought-tolerant once established. It does not want heavy feeding. Along a path or border edge, it does something genuinely beautiful. It softens the hard line between the path and the bed in a way that looks designed and intentional without you having had to try very hard at all. Bees and butterflies never seem to leave it. And yes, your cat may periodically lose its mind rolling around in it. This is harmless and honestly quite entertaining. Hardy in zones 3 through 8. Highly cold tolerant and widely adaptable, making it a brilliant choice for northern gardeners who want reliable season-long color. We are halfway through the list. The next 5 include 2 ground covers that will do your weeding for you by physically crowding weeds out, and 1 ornamental grass that will add more visual drama to your garden than almost anything else you can plant. Do not go anywhere. Plant 11, yarrow. Yarrow started as a wildflower, and that origin is encoded in everything about it. Flat-topped flower clusters in reds, yellows, creamy whites, and soft pinks rise above feathery, finely cut foliage that looks elegant even when the plant is not in bloom. The overall effect is relaxed and naturalistic, the kind of garden that looks like it arrived there on its own terms. The toughness of yarrow borders on legendary. It tolerates drought, heat, poor soil, and low fertility without complaint. It self-seeds and gradually fills in around itself, expanding coverage without you lifting a finger. The cut flowers dry beautifully and hold their color for months indoors, giving you material for arrangements that last long after the season ends. One note: in heavily amended, very fertile soil, yarrow can spread with enthusiasm. Give it a spot with leaner conditions, and it behaves in a perfectly civilized manner. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. One of the most cold-tolerant plants on this entire list. Plant 12, Coreopsis, tickseed. If there is a more cheerful plant than Coreopsis, I have not found it. Bright, button-like flowers in sunshine yellow, warm orange, soft pink, and punchy bicolors bloom on this plant for an almost absurdly long season. Some varieties begin in late spring and genuinely do not stop until the first hard frost of autumn arrives. That is 5 to 6 months of color from one plant. It is heat and drought tolerant. It prefers lean soil. Over-fertilizing it actually reduces the number of flowers it produces, which means doing less genuinely gives you more. Many modern varieties are self-cleaning, meaning old flowers drop on their own without requiring any deadheading from you. In mass plantings along a sunny border, Coreopsis creates something that looks like a deliberate, well-designed sweep of color. The reality is you planted it, occasionally looked at it, and it did the rest. Hardy in zones 3 through 9, with some threadleaf varieties hardy to zone 4. Outstanding in hot, sunny gardens across the South and Midwest. Plant 13, Liriope, Lilidef. This one is not the flashiest plant on today's list. It is the most useful one. And useful is what actually transforms a difficult garden into a beautiful one. Liriope looks like a grass, but it is actually a flowering perennial. Its dark, strappy, arching leaves stay attractive through the entire growing season, and in late summer it sends up spikes of small purple or white flowers that are genuinely lovely. But the reason you plant Liriope is what it does as a ground cover. It handles deep shade. It handles full sun. It tolerates drought, compacted soil, and erosion-prone slopes where practically nothing else will establish itself. Once it settles in, it forms a dense enough mat to crowd out most weeds without any intervention from you. Under large trees where the soil is root-choked and bone-dry and nothing seems to want to survive, Liriope handles it without drama. Hardy in zones 5 through 10. Particularly popular and highly successful across the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic. One of the more heat-tolerant plants on the entire list. Plant 14, Creeping Phlox. In spring, Creeping Phlox does something that has to be seen to be believed. It produces such a thick, dense carpet of flowers, hot pink, deep magenta, soft lavender, crisp white, rich purple, that the foliage disappears almost completely underneath them. It cascades over retaining walls. It tumbles down slopes. It floods rocky banks with color in a way that looks like you spent serious money and serious effort achieving it. After blooming, it becomes a neat, tidy, evergreen mat of fine foliage that holds its color through the rest of the year, keeps soil anchored on slopes, and suppresses weeds for the remainder of the season. For rock gardens, hillsides, edges, and walls where plants can spill dramatically over the edge, creeping phlox looks intentional, designed, and expensive. The actual maintenance is a light trim once it finishes blooming to keep it tidy. That is the whole job. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. Exceptional in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic where cool spring temperatures extend the bloom season. In warmer zones, good drainage and some afternoon shade during the hottest period keeps it happy. Plant 15. Karl Forster Feather Reed Grass. I saved this one deliberately for last, because this is the plant I want you to walk away thinking about. The one that changes a garden from a collection of plants into something that looks genuinely designed. Karl Forster Feather Reed Grass grows 4 to 6 feet tall in a clean, upright, non-flopping clump that never sprawls and never spreads aggressively. In late spring, feathery green flower plumes emerge and catch the light with real grace. By midsummer, those plumes have matured to a warm golden tone. In autumn, the whole plant transitions to rich bronze gold that glows in the low, angled autumn light in a way that is almost impossible to photograph well enough to do it justice. And then winter comes, and Karl Forster stands. Most perennials give you a few weeks of bloom and then fade to background noise. Karl Forster is genuinely interesting in every single month of the year. It moves in the wind. It catches frost on cold mornings. It sways and whispers in a way that adds an auditory dimension to your garden that nothing else quite replicates. It is a four-season plant in the truest possible sense of the phrase. Drought-tolerant once established. No fertilizing needed. No staking required. Annual maintenance. One hard cutback to about 5 inches from the ground in late winter before new growth begins. One haircut per year. That is the entire to-do list. Hardy in zones 4 through 9. Performs beautifully across an extraordinary range of climates. Let me bring all 15 of these together in a way that actually helps you choose where to start. For shaded and difficult spots, hostis, astilbe, and liriope. These 3 will completely transform the dark, awkward areas of your garden that have defeated everything else you have tried. For hot, dry, sun-baked spots, black-eyed Susan, sedum, yarrow, coreopsis, and Russian sage. These 5 were built for the conditions that break other plants. For edges and ground cover that crowds out weeds, creeping phlox, catmint, and liriope. Plant these and spend less time with a hoe. For color, fragrance, and pollinators, lavender, echinacea, perennial salvia, and daylilies. Your bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds will thank you. Your neighbors will ask what you are doing differently. For structure, movement, and drama that lasts all 4 seasons, Russian sage and Karl Forster grass. These are the plants that make a garden look like it had a designer involved when all it really had was a good plant choice. Here is what I want you to take from today before you close this video. You do not need more knowledge. You do not need more time. You do not need to become a different kind of person. You just need different plants. Pick 3 from this list. 3 that match the spots you already have. Plant them this season. Give them a few weeks. And then watch what happens when plants that are actually built for your real life start doing what they were always designed to do. Because there is a specific moment that happens when you have done this. When you are standing in your garden with a cup of tea or coffee, not working, not worrying, just looking, and it is genuinely beautiful. And you realize that it has been beautiful for months and you barely had to do anything. That moment is what today's list is designed to give you. Now, before you go, I want to hear from you in the comments. Which of these 15 are you planting first? And what is the spot in your garden you have been trying to figure out for years? Tell me below. I read every single comment, and I would genuinely love to know. And if this video gave you something useful today, share it. I mean that. There is someone in your life who has given up on gardening because they were given the wrong plants and the wrong advice. And this list might be exactly what changes that for them. Hit subscribe if you are not already in. Every week, I put out something practical, something real, something built for gardeners who have a life outside the garden. Turn the notifications on so you never miss one. Now go choose your 3 plants. Your garden is ready when you are.